welcome to the New Look Commentator's Corner for episode number 60. Sort of a kick up the proverbial design backside, if you like, with a new look, new format in some respects, but also great guests. November 2021 was when I first started this podcast as a passion project, and it's gone on to be so much more. I've had 59 wonderful guests so far, and what's more, from a variety of different roles within the motorsport industry. But episode 60 is a revisited episode, and it's with our first ever guest. Yep, George Morgan joins me on this particular one. And I hope you all enjoy how things have evolved for George over the last 2.5 years, and also he gives us some hot takes on the F1 silly season so far. So I hope you all enjoy this one. Well, George, it's been a minute, hasn't it? November 2021, you became the first guest on Commentator's Corner, and here we are at episode 60, and we're revisiting, we're sort of like moving on. How have things been, buddy? You've been a very, very busy man.
Yeah, it's been good, Alex. I think obviously it's been quite some time. I think we were discussing it prior to going live with this, and yeah, it's been good. Really, really enjoyable. Obviously, I'd say I'm in a vastly different place to where I was when I last spoke to you. So it's yeah, I'd like to think it's been a positive step.
A very positive step. I mean, for those that do know George, obviously you've followed his travels. You've got a lot of respect within the league of sim racing, such as PSGL, which you are still very much involved with. Of course, F1 Esports has now been back on your remit as well, because as we're recording this, we're literally the day before George flies over to Sweden again to do the event 3 alongside Hayden, Claire, and I think it's Adiana or something. I can't remember her first name.
Ariana Bravo.
That's it,
Yeah,
Ariana Bravo.
Yeah.
But of course, you've also done a lot. You're now into your third season of the International GT Open, partnering with our learned friend, who I do need to get onto this show, the man, the myth, the legend that is Mr. Chris Stevens. You've also done the E1 Electric Powerboat Series for the first round, which in Saudi, in Jeddah, and of course you're still a regular with Formula Regional European Championship, and then became one of the lead voices for ESLR1 and Rennsport, which we talked about when I was with the publication at that time, but the interview never got aired. How's been the change from sort of like going into that, okay, working a job and then doing the commentary on the side and then going into full blown? Because now that you're really sort of picking up pace and being one of the most loved commentators out there at the moment in terms of your generation, how does it feel now? Do you still have to pinch yourself?
Always. That's a very kind run of superlatives you've left there, Alex. I really appreciate it. But at the same time, I always try and keep my feet firmly on the ground with everything. I mean, I consider myself very fortunate. It's a goal I've always wanted to achieve, an ambition. I think everyone has a right to have an ambition and a goal. I think that's our purpose here on this planet. But
Yep.
I do pinch myself almost daily, and I thank my lucky stars that I'm here. I never ever thought that it would go this far. To be quite honest, I thought to be quite frank, I thought, okay, league racing's great, and I love league racing, still do. Very much like you say, I'm involved with PSGL fully because it's a league I'm very betrothed to. Obviously, as someone who's been there for quite a long time, alongside my colleague Jack Canan, and obviously moving on forward, as soon as we had the opportunities to move on and give real life motorsport a go, I remember when I first started, I was so nervous. Really unsure as to whether I was making the right choice, because I was leaving a job which, I mean, bear in mind I was running the job coinciding with the commentary for a good 8 months, but eventually it just got too much and I had to make a decision. But at that point, it was a very nervous moment, because I was basically putting my cards on the table and saying, listen, we're going to give this a shot. And I remember the nerves back then. I remember the nerves prior to my first round of commentary at Estoril for the International GT Open weekend. It was my first time flying out the country on my own, to be truthful. So it was that, coupled with many other things. So it was a huge deal. But to finally turn around and do it, it was yeah, it was quite something, and I was hooked almost instantly as soon as we got going. I was like, yes, I want to do this. And I think, given as time has gone on, we've seen certain championships grow stronger. GT Open now with over 30 one full season cars. GT Cup Open now with multiple manufacturers. Ferrari now with a big representation through Mertel Motorsport. We've got obviously Euro Formula still going, and to be doing FRECA and a championship such as that, which produces incredible new young talents that eventually take part in the Formula One feeder series, is mind blowing. And obviously commentating on the likes of Andrea Kimi Antonelli, plus many GT stars. And now getting to this point where I also managed to embody and live another dream, which was commentate for F1 sim racing. It's phenomenal to be part of that, and that was something that was of high importance to me when I was doing league racing. If I could ever get a chance to do one round of that, which I did eventually, round 2 at Imola in the 2022 season. Alex Jakes was megally supportive. Very, very thankful to him as well for his support, as well as everyone in the league racing community as well. It's it's been a ripe and a real pleasurable journey, I should say.
I mean, also coming on to F1 sim racing, of course, you've commentated not just at what we know from the modern day version of F1 sim racing, but back when it was F1 Esports, the Gfinity Arena. What's the difference in terms of the atmosphere? Is it still quite the same, or is there a different aura between the two in terms of locations?
I'd say the aura is vastly different. I think. I mean, don't get me wrong. The Gfinity Arena was kind of like, at the time. I mean, it's kind of a tough comparison, but if you were to think of the Crucible in snooker, obviously the World Championships are on at the moment. You can kind of take similar vibes. Gfinity Arena has played a vital role in F1 sim racing in the past, and was certainly royal ground, I think, in terms of that series. But I mean, since moving to this purpose-built facility in Sweden, it's certainly made a huge difference. We got a grander space. The drivers are all within reaching distance of each other. Everyone's under the same roof. It makes a huge difference in terms of the aura, the feel. We're getting raw emotion from the drivers as well, and everyone taking part, the teams. Even despite there being an audience, I think eventually we will get to the point where we have a live audience. But until then, we are getting closer and closer to that real immersive experience. I think that F1 sim racing quite rightly should have, and I applaud F1. I applaud F1 sim racing, and I applaud the whole team behind the scenes that have made it happen. It's really been a positive shift.
Yeah, it's really nice to actually see everyone together, and you have that kind of, in a way, garage style feel like we have with Formula One with the Miami Grand Prix this weekend. It really does showcase that by having this pressure cooker style atmosphere, very much like Rennsport as well. When you had the LAN events, we'll get onto Rennsport in a little bit. It's always nice to see those visceral emotions from the drivers, from the team, also especially with family members being there as well. It just goes to show that esports still does need LAN events. I mean, I know that for a fact, doing the Sim Racing Expo for the past 2 years. That without having that kind of captive audience, whether it be on a stream, whether it be ad personam, in person, there's always that feel that esports is always good to have these LAN events, because it really does help to get the community together more than anything.
Yeah, I think it's important to connect. I think with the community, I think it's important to connect with your audience as well. I think we learned that a lot with the ESL-R1 when we first did Katowice. And despite it being on a small scale at that time, obviously it was the first live show we ever did with Rennsport. But you could tell with the audience getting involved that this is like a snippet of what we could expect in the future, of what sim racing could become. And I think when we did our most recent show with the ESL-R1 at DreamHack in front of a live audience, we had the pre-show, which garnered a lot of interest, I think, from the spectators as well as the viewers at home. And then, of course, we went into the show proper, and just that interaction, building the buzz, the entertainment factor, and the value. As much as we have the drivers, obviously the commentary, the presenting team, and those behind the scenes making it all happen, the audience plays a key role in making something seem bigger than what it simply is. Without viewership, without the fans getting involved and a live audience to boot as well, these events wouldn't happen. So it's integral that we can kind of push that point, bring in the fan interaction, bring in that audience element. Whenever I heard, the crowd at DreamHack screaming for their life when, I don't know, Kevin Siggy would do something, or you'd get a Max Benneker moment, or a Joshua Rogers insane overtake, or anything like that. It really did send a chill up the spine, and it's those moments that we want to capture in this community, and that is essentially what sport is. It's about emotion, passion, and just winning, pretty much.
I kind of remember when I was doing the ADAC Sim Racing Expo last year at the Dodden Mesa, and we were having the Aztec Sim Sports Community Trophy, and we had a packed house, like literally standing room only. But it wasn't the biggest stage. I'll be completely honest with you. The drivers were racing from home, which wasn't an issue from a logistical standpoint. It was easier for us at Southwest Vision and the Sim Racing Expo to have everyone racing from home. So the big backing, the big Trinitron on the stage was like literally for myself and Nicholas Hilbrand, our point. So I had my laptop, my phone charging mat and everything, just so at least I had all my info to hand, which included the live timing. I kind of wish I'd asked for a second screen with an HDMI connector on there at that point, but I said, right, okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause, some and like literally half of them erupted, and then that caused a bit of a domino effect. I mean, it was quite funny seeing the dart style signs, like like the PDC come out when it was DreamHack at ESLR one, because I remember watching
Fantastic.
it, and I was also involved in with Williams Esports at that time for their hosting at that point, which was pretty cool. And I loved the fact that ESLR one and Regsport with Moritz and the team at Competition Company to bring something a bit out there, sort of like go a
Yeah,
bit outside of the box. But then, of
go against
course,
the grain.
yeah,
Mm.
and then of course Riyadh as well.
Mm.
When you had yourself, we had Lewis, we had Arjuna, we had Ewan. Um, we also had Veracity there as well, along with Jardier, who did a blooming good job as a pundit.
He's fantastic. Yeah.
Who's just recently suffered his biggest crash ever in ACC, where he got punted from behind, and there were multiple. It was like domino effects, as we know in GT3's
He'll be
driving.
hoping he doesn't get those in Clio Cup. I'm telling you.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, because he's doing that this year for a part of the campaign, which is really, really good to see. Of course, a former actual IRL racer who went to sim racing and now has gone back, a bit like
Yeah.
James Baldwin, who started at Daytona
Steve
Demon.
Brown.
Yep, Steve Alvarez
Mm.
Brown. Yep, it's
Yeah.
it's crazy. But of course, alongside the commentary, you're doing quite a you're still concentrating on your live streams. You also I remember you doing the Luca Domino series
Yeah.
for quite a time, which was actually quite interesting. Where who was it? You had Enzo Fittipaldi as the second driver. Luca was the lead driver and the team boss. Enzo
Yeah.
gets dropped, then Jenson Button's brought in.
I must
Um,
say he was quite underwhelming, Button. Actually, he disappointed me a little bit. I was expecting some decent results. I think after signing him, because I thought
yeah.
we're gonna have an upturn now. We got Jensen, we got a former world champion behind the
Mhm.
wheel. No, it didn't work.
But that's one of the beautiful things about when you get this opportunity, and I want to sort of go a bit into detail here, because not only are you editing, you're voicing it over, you're also driving as Luca. In This is
Mm.
what a lot of people don't realize, that in order to do something like this, you're actually behind the wheel.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
it,
that's
it,
right.
it must have taken you a hell of a lot of man hours to get each episode sorted out, when
It
you're
did.
having to voice over, you want to get the voiceover crisp and correct, and you want to make sure it sounds natural. But then there's the case of, okay, right, I'm going to drive the race as Luca, we're going to see how it goes. I mean, there must have been a lot of fun, and a couple of times when you're sort of slamming your head about against a brick wall, trying to get it all put together,
Uh,
because it's like being a. It's like with me with Commentator's Corner. There are times when I just go, right, okay, I want to make sure this looks good. I want to do this. I want to do that. And it's like literally attention to detail to an OCD and ADHD level, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was when producing that series and making it happen. Obviously, I've kind of put a stop on it for now because obviously things have got a little busy now that the season's restarted. But it was a lot of fun to make. A lot of time was spent editing. I think I did 3 episodes in one day once, and scheduled them out on YouTube. That was my big trick. I thought, well, I'll tell you what, if I edit 3 or 4 in one day, I can schedule them out over the course of the next 4 weeks. So I'll do 1 upload a week or 2 uploads a week or something, just to space it out and try and reduce the workload, because obviously you want to be a bit, work smart, not hard as such.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. I always have this little thing in me where I want to flex my creative muscle a little bit, because I do enjoy a little bit of work on Premiere Pro and Photoshop things, and different things, and I would like to enhance the experience a little more by adding proper overlays on and things like that. But it's a little tricky when you're actually doing the game, and it doesn't really allow you to do it in replay mode. So you've got to kind of deal with what you've got. But I tried going outside of the box, adding a sort of Drive to Survive-esque type vibe to the content. I thought it might add something a little different. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to do. And something I've been trying to get my head around lately is obviously just doing something you're happy doing, as opposed to anything else. And I've been speaking to a few people behind the scenes, obviously outside of the content. I actually made a point of discussing it on my Discord, actually, with the people in my server. And I had a great chat with a guy called Slammer, who runs the Oceania Invitational series on the F1 game, which is actually coming up this year as well. And he was saying, he said, George, just do whatever makes you happy. And I must say, I just love being creative. So I think Luca Domino will come back. We're probably going to put that, though, more into an F1 manager type save, because obviously they've brought in their own My Team facility for the brand new 2024 game. So I think it'll be fascinating for us to sort of bring that into that and offer a whole different experience altogether.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, I've even discussed with George about saying, like, if he needed a co-commentator, I'm up for doing it. So let's make it happen, buddy. Maybe.
Who knows?
But also one of the newest things that you've done, you did a behind the scenes look, going to Portimao
Yes,
for.
that's new. Yeah.
Now, for those people know, I've been doing vlogs since 2023. Vlogs 2, 3, and 4 are edited. They have yet to be scheduled. It's just taken me longer than anticipated, because as you well know, George, and you've rightly put it out there, being creative's one thing, but having the time, having the
Yeah.
luxury to do it is
If only.
exactly.
Not enough hours in the day.
Yeah, yeah. We've got to sleep as well at some point. Sleep, eat, do whatever we need to do, and everything like that.
Normal
But
human functions.
yes, yes, indeed. But
Yeah.
also doing a vlog for the first time, that must have been an interesting one to do, from your own
Yeah.
perspective, because I've done vlogs, and as you rightly said, I don't know whether I didn't manage to get everything recorded, because there are some times when you are being pulled from pillar to post, folks. Like literally,
Yeah.
I'll be told, "Oh, we need a thumbnail for this. What time are we going live?" And then there's so many discussions behind the scenes that when you're talking to your broadcast producer, you're having discussions with people in the paddock, so drivers, like say what happened in qualifying. So there's so much that's going on that we can only do so much. But one of the things that I do also like is that George is someone like me who prefers to stand up when he commentates, because you just
Yeah.
get that full energy, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I've just from being at school, I remember they used to make us stand up to sing the hymns in the morning and stuff like that. So you'd have to stand up so you could get full oxygen into your lungs and project. That's how you do it. When you do the national anthem, you stand up. So as far as I'm concerned, when you commentate, you stand up. That's my logic. I think if especially working and running a rock band for 7 years, everything we did was stood up. Whether it be recording, playing live, anything. So yeah, I embrace standing when it comes to commentary, because I think it's better. It makes me. I think it adds to that energetic vibe as well. Because I mean, I never stop dancing when I'm in, when I'm in the box. so terrible for it.
Oh.
Yeah, but yeah. I think like any singer would, stand up.
Mhm.
And I think the same goes for commentary as well.
Did Chris Stevens have a couple of cringe moments when you started dancing in the commentary box?
Well, it's like involuntary movement, to be honest. When you're excited to get going, you're
Yes.
like, the leg starts twitching. You're like, yeah, come on, let's do this. And I'm there doing the odd jog. I don't know I'm doing it, but I'm doing it.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just, I don't know, the excitement takes over. I still get the same buzz when I commentate real life as I do in the sim racing sense.
Mm.
I'm exactly the same. I'm sure if there was a camera on me while I was doing F1 sim racing in Sweden, I would have been doing exactly the same thing. Yeah, it's just I think that's just passion for the sport. I
Mhm.
think at least I like to think it is. I hope it's nothing sinister.
No, 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 no. Far from it. I mean, we're both of the same mantle because of the fact when I started my commentary career, I was standing up, and there are times now when locations don't always give you enough headroom clearance.
Mm.
And I've had that a couple of times where I've realised that if I stand up and I jump a bit too high, then I know I'm
Some
going to hit.
low ceilings.
Oh, dearie me. Yeah, like literally at an
Watch out for
angle.
the oak beams as well.
Oh, watch out for the corrugated iron above your head. So I've got to that point now where, irrespective of whether I'm standing or whether I'm sitting, and it also depends on the location where you're in as well. I found over my commentary career that I can
Yeah.
still use my diaphragm, but I have to sit bolt upright.
Yep.
And then there are times when I always find that, like say karting Genk, for instance, it's I sit down for some of the races because I know for a fact it's more about storytelling. But then when you've got 36 senior road tax drivers going around a 1.36 kilometer circuit for about 15 minutes, your head has got to be on a swivel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
now about knowing that. But yeah, it is a case of, singing and commentary also go hand in hand, because this is one of the things that I always say is about how to use your diaphragm, because that's what gives you those extra decibels that come out and scare the living bejesus out of people when they least expect it. That's happened a few times where someone went, "Oh, well, you sound quite normal when you do the introduction, but when you get excited, my goodness, my eardrums nearly burst." I went, "That's the whole point. We're
Yeah.
trying to make an impact. Trying to make an
Mm.
impact." Um, but ESLR1 and Rennsport, you were involved very early on from, what happened at Katowice, way back when. How's the journey been with that so far? Because obviously ESLR1 have now announced that they're back, and with a very, very different calendar in comparison with what we saw last year.
Yeah, different calendar and different teams as well. We've had quite a few of the old guard go, but some new ones have come through. And what I like about it is that we've got more independent factions coming in.
Hmm.
We've got a few new names, new faces, new drivers, and I think again that's exciting because it brings the realms of mystery to the grid. We're not sure who's going to truly be the best driver. I mean, we could be a total new face, new name. Finding their way to the top of the order. Of course, we've just seen Josh Rogers take the title back at DreamHack. Did it in great style. But yeah, and I mean, this is going to be a vastly different affair because all of this is going to be done online, and at the same time, it's a shortened season, a shortened calendar. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who copes with that better. I think in that sense, I mean, we saw similar things in F1 sim racing where they kind of clubbed together 6 races in the space of 3 days, which I think for some drivers it worked for others it didn't. Certainly, I think for a lot of the older guys that have been around since 2017, the likes of your Brendan Lees, your Donosos, Rasmussen, Otmir, they the cream certainly rose to the top in that sense. But we got a couple of new rookies that stepped up, like Alfie Butcher, and we got Ishmael Fassi, and even Tom Manley. Jed Norgrove has been stellar this season. Like I said on the broadcast, having a nosebleed where he started the odd race during the course of that campaign. And I actually apologised to him after for that because I said, you didn't deserve that. I said to him, but yeah.
Oh, it is quite funny how we're able to we pick up on so many different things, isn't it, George? Where like
Yeah.
it could be, yeah, I caught up with so and so over dinner last night, and then people just go, "Oh God, what's?" And it's always the person that you're describing, or it's the parents that go in like saying, "What did he do?" And like it ends up being fine because it's just like
Yeah,
you can feel your ears burning, saying, "I know the parents can hear me right now." Whether it
yeah,
be
yeah.
on the stream or whether it be like say on a circuit PA, and they just go, "Now,
Well, the funny thing was, Jed came up to me. He said, "I agree with you." he said, he said, I honestly, if you look at his league form coming up to F1 Esports, it's he's kind of a uh, an abnormality because
hmm
you wouldn't expect someone at his level at that time to have even garnered a drive in F1 sim racing. So
yeah,
it was a very odd find. But kudos to AlphaTauri for finding him, or Red Bull, I should say, for finding him, because he wasn't on anyone's list, to get a seat that for this season. So the fact that he turned up at Bahrain and shocked everybody by scoring the points and put on the defensive masterclass that he did, and he didn't just do it once. He went ahead and did it several times during event 2 as well. So and some of his qualifying displays, his one lap pace is fantastic. So at the end of the day, you've got to have the bottle to do it, and in live arena. Because obviously it's his land debut, so it's
hmm
incredible, especially against some of the new talents that have come through. Butcher and Manley both being F1 Esports Challengers champions.
Fassi is effectively like the sim racing equivalent of Alexander Albon right now because the drives that he put on at event 2, I have to say,
Fabulous.
were
Yeah.
absolutely mighty. And
Yeah.
the thing is, it's always about acquiring the right talent. And when you look at the trajectory of certain teams, where you got like Thomas Ronhar, who let's be completely honest with you, you were quite
Mm.
defensive of him
Yeah.
when all the hoo ha started between Jarno Opmeer and Thomas Ronhar, like saying something's going on here. And Jarno was
Mm.
quite adamant about that fact, but then Thomas just went, "I'm just going to let my stuff, my racing on the track, do the talking." And he comes through event 1, starts straight off with the victory. Like people like saying,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
on, he's
Yeah.
the real deal." And
Mm.
I think now it's got to that point where Jarno's concentrated on a lot of other things. I had the opportunity of meeting him at Karting Genk along with Nina Pothoff, who's running as
Yep.
Nina Gaderman in F4 British F4 with Fortec this year, along with
Yep.
Arthur Lehouk, who is a multi-time vice champion in French karting, but also a Williams Esports driver. And we had all three on the grid. And then I look at Jarno's Twitter feed, and then all of a sudden I've got, hang on a second, it's got him running around in the cart, and it's got my commentary alongside. So it's like he's clipped the live stream, and I've gone, heavens to Betsy! Just when you think things couldn't get any weirder, I've ended up on Jarno Opmeer's official Twitter feed. Holy crap! Which is quite a weird feeling for a commentator, considering of what I've
Mm.
been doing over the last 7 years. But like you said, there's been so many great talents that have come through into F1 sim racing. But let's
Mm.
get on to E1.
Mm.
Um, electric power boats. That
Yes.
that must have been a bit of a curveball when you got the call on that one.
Yeah, I mean, for many reasons, really, and there's several brilliant stories I could tell you about that because, I mean, first and foremost, to have the opportunity to work with Aurora Production was amazing.
hmm
Because they are a great team, and to have the honour of travelling to London to meet them ahead of planning to do this event, it was incredible. And I must say, every member of staff behind the scenes were fabulous. To work, to certainly get things underway. They gave me the time of day to learn because obviously this is my first time essentially working with that kind of production company. It's very different to, say, another company you might work with in say, for example, F1 sim racing or any sim racing broadcast as such. Things are just done slightly differently to a degree because you've got big galleries and things of that nature, and then you've got the editing suites and then everything else. So you've got to try and know your way around everything. But it was truly fabulous to get stuck in at Saudi Arabia for the first time, and to meet the pilots, who many of them I was aware of, obviously from motorsport, from racing with Emma Kimalainen, Vicky Piria,
hmm
Danny Close, of course, who reserved as a Formula One driver for quite a few years. and several others, including Sam Coleman, who incidentally lives he grew up in Saundersfoot in West Wales, and I holidayed there every year with my parents ever since I was a little kid. We actually, he told me which hotel he owned, which was at the top of the cliff, and we lived in the flats just below because my parents bought a flat over there, and I would travel there on holiday. And as soon as he heard that, me and him just clicked like that. So we were chatting every day, pretty much after that. And I was so thrilled when he won the first round for Team Brady, because of course he represents Tom Brady. And I must say, one of the most heart and mouth moments for me, and one of the highlights I think that'll obviously stay with me forever. There was an Instagram story from Tom Brady himself that he posted, and he's in his living room watching the show, and you can hear my voice in his living room, in Tom Brady's living room. So that for me, it doesn't really get much higher than that. I mean, it's pretty good from a 7-time Super Bowl champion. I mean, it's not bad, is it? Let's be honest.
No,
live on CBS and Fox, and yeah, why not?
yeah, no,
I transcended.
mate. That's the thing when you got one of the goats of NFL quarterbacks in the entire history.
I say the GOAT. I would say
the
in all
GOAT.
honesty.
I mean, when you look at
statistically the GOAT.
Statistically, the GOAT, but then you got other people like Peyton Manning. I remember back in the
Peyton
day.
Manning, yeah. Well, people talk about Manning and obviously Brady all the time, don't they?
Yeah.
They draw comparisons. Yeah.
They always do when it comes to generational talents, and they both, for their respective generations within the NFL, were the cream of the crop. They were right up there. But also power boats, electric power boats, a completely alien concept to a lot of people. You must have done a lot of revision. You must have been feeling like, hang on, I'm revising for a very, very public exam on something. Okay, electric technology is not a problem, but then power boating, completely different side of things, and also with the fact that they could variate the courses with the buoy system, which I was actually
the GPS markers.
With the GPS markers, very intuitive technology, which
incredible technology.
And you must have been thinking, right, my notepad is going to be full to the brim of information that I want to have by my side, just in case. It's like me with my laptop. Like literally, I've got spreadsheets, I've got A4 notes, whatever, to help me get through each particular race weekend. I hate to think how full to the brim your notepad must have been for that weekend in Jeddah.
Well, what you've got to think is that obviously I've been watching motorsport since '96. I'd say when obviously Damon Hill won the title. That was my first year of Formula One at the age of 4. So I've had all that time to ingrain myself in Formula One motorsport, and you're talking nearly 30 years. There of watching motorsport. But when you step into something like this, which is brand new, of course, the E1 electric powerboats, you've got to have it right from the off. So essentially, you're playing 30 years of research into into this very thing, because obviously historical elements aside, but there is some history because foiling has been a concept that has been developing ever since the 1800s. So it's kind of something that's kind of pushed, and you had to understand various elements. It's not just the boats itself, but the concepts. The whole idea of sitting a boat on the foils, the wash generated as well that other pilots have got to contend with, and just how you negotiate your way around a circuit and a layout. Especially considering you've got joker laps that you've got to run as well, among other things. And it's a really incredible format that embraces both male and female pilots as well. Both have to race, whether it's male v female, female v female, male v male. They all race each other, which is brilliant. And in terms of that inclusivity factor, they do a great job with that. A fantastic series, I must say. I think in time we'll see it develop further. It's still obviously the infancy stage. There's a lot more to come, but I think from the initial, what we've seen from the get-go, it's been pretty successful, I would say, in the sense that I think it's captured the imagination of many. I know that everyone behind the scenes was quite intrigued as to how it was going to work, and I must say, for me, it was it was exciting to try my hand at something very different as well, and see how far I could stretch myself.
Yeah, completely understand. But as I said before we started recording, it was a great
Mm,
job, and I thought it was quite different to hear you in a very very different atmosphere in terms of what
mm.
type of propulsion, what that it was actually on water than it rather than it being on
Rather than
land,
tarmac.
and having four contact patches known as
Yeah,
tyres.
yeah.
But I think what I want to do, because obviously this revisited episode is really more of a catch up than anything. It's just to sort of really talk about. But I want to talk to a man who loves his F1, and we're going to talk
Mm,
about silly season because there has been
brilliant.
an absolute shed load going on from
Got some hot takes on this.
Oh, mate. Right. Okay. First of all, I want your hot take on Hamilton joining Leclerc at Ferrari for 2025.
Yeah, I think for Leclerc, maybe an element of concern. For Hamilton, understandable. I think, and I would say this is definitely the final frontier. I would say, in terms of his future F1 career, will it work? I think the timing is perfect.
Hmm.
I think in the sense that Red Bull are now starting to unravel. Ferrari are very much the second fastest car on the grid. I would say McLaren are their only concern.
Hmm.
Mercedes have got some catching up to do. So I would say Ferrari at this point are the favourites, in my view, going into next season. Um,
Hmm.
I think they're knocking on the right door. I think they're doing everything right at the moment. The acquisitions have been strong, and if they do sign Adrian Newey as their
That was what I
designer,
was going to come on to next. So Adrian
then
Newey, take it away.
well, I made this tweet before saying it's like the Avengers are coming to roost. You've got Ferrari, Hamilton, Newey, all coming together, which is truly remarkable. But I mean, I would like to see Newey go in other places. Obviously, when I was watching in '96, that was when Williams would take the crown with the likes of Damon Hill. That was the year
Hmm.
I first watched Damon Hill would win it. Following year, Jacques Villeneuve, Newey responsible for both of those cars that would, obtain that success.
Hmm.
And there's been rumours that apparently James Vowles and Newey have had conversations about potentially bringing him back. So that there's many different arcs that Newey can take in terms of his story, and I think it's a fabulous story as well. I think on one level, joining a team that he's been up against for 30 years, I think is a fascinating story. Obviously,
Hmm.
he's battled against Ferrari with Williams and McLaren, and of course Red Bull. So it'd be fascinating to see him all of a sudden join that team and garner them the success that they've been starved of for so many years, and working alongside Lewis Hamilton against someone who he hasn't really had much to do with,
Hmm.
in his professional history. And then, of course, if he joins Williams, there's that, road to glory kind of campaign, and also
Yeah.
a restoration of a once great, well, they are still a great team, but a once very successful team.
Okay. George Morgan's hot take on Fernando Alonso's lifetime contract at Aston Martin. Well, which was I don't like doing that.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah, yeah.
but apparent lifetime contract
Mm,
Aston Martin. I mean, I'll give my hot take first. Interesting that with Honda now becoming Aston Martin becoming the works Honda team from 2026 onwards. That's a bit of a left field sort of pitch. It's like a curveball being thrown. But then Alonso, who, if people might remember when he joined McLaren for the second time, GP2 engine, GP2 engine. Ah!
remember those seasons well.
Oh, dearie me.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, Honda are obviously in a very different place now. I think if we look in recent history, they've had so much success with Red Bull.
Mm,
Obviously now coveted as probably the greatest engine manufacturer in the sport at this very moment. It's no wonder why Lawrence Stroll has obviously decided to ally himself with Honda and obviously Aston Martin as a consequence. I think Alonso sees this as an opportunity to be part of a team that is obviously on the up. I would have expected more, perhaps, over the course of the last two seasons with Aston Martin, certainly considering the amount of investment that has gone into that team. and the potential that they have as well. And my take on it is, and you've been hearing the rumors in the media around Yuki Tsunoda as well. Obviously, Honda want to place him at a top team. I can't see him getting a chance at Red Bull, but I could see him getting a stab at Aston Martin. Should Honda take over, and it's Lawrence Stroll then has a very difficult decision to make. Do you A, forfeit your prize pick being Fernando Alonso, or do you turn to your own son and say, listen, time's up?
Time's up, and you're going in the WEC program.
Yeah. Well,
I
what can you
mean,
say?
yeah, I think adding on to that, along with Tsunoda, Ayumu Iwasa, another Honda-sponsored driver.
I
So
think he's AlphaTauri bound personally, or should I say RB?
RB,
bound,
or as the mayor of Hinchcliffe is still saying V-carb at the moment. Come on.
Or Minardi.
Yeah, or Minardi. Okay, let's talk Audi. So Nico Hülkenberg has already signed. It's been confirmed. But the other piece of the puzzle, Carlos Sainz, I'm thinking it might or it might not happen to Audi.
I think it should happen. Personally speaking, to me, it's the one move that makes sense to me. Not to say that him joining Mercedes wouldn't make sense. I think that does too. But I just think he's got an opportunity at Audi to be their staple number one. I think the problem with joining Mercedes is that George will always be number one because he has been with the team for so long. He was the golden goose for them too, in many ways. Effectively, the young Brit that was set to be Hamilton's replacement, going forward. That was always the way it was coated. Certainly portrayed in the media, and certainly portrayed to your average Formula One fan. So I mean, for Carlos Sainz, I would say the right move, joining Audi, and what a fabulous partnership it would be to see him with Nico Hülkenberg as well. I think you've got two very talented drivers. Nico now with a great chance to really push for that elusive podium that he's been stretching for.
Yep.
That has obviously denied him at every turn, but he's always someone who has turned up and has delivered in anything he's been given. You can arguably say that he's been unlucky, probably one of the most unluckiest drivers.
Oh, yeah.
Almost the Giancarlo Fisichella of today's modern era. You know what I mean? So it's in many ways, I would like to see him come in and grab that elusive podium, maybe even get that race win. And with Audi now centralizing their development, obviously it's a shame to see that the customer racing is going to take a bit of a downturn, because we've got so many fantastic Audi teams that compete in GT, which are probably now going to have to look elsewhere. And you've got many factory drivers that are probably going to lose out now as well. Hopefully they'll be supported. I'm sure the likes of Christopher Haase will find a team somewhere, because he's just so talented. But we're now going to see, I think, a real change in the winds. I think, and with Audi joining the grid, I think it's excellent. We've got another manufacturer. See the fact you've got Audi, Aston Martin, Mercedes. Truly fantastic. It's the way it should be, in my view.
Yeah, I mean, I still remember when he was with Renault back in the late 2010s, and he was second. He was second at Hockenheim in that topsy-turvy race for what was I think a celebratory one for Mercedes, where they had the sort of like the wrap that looked like it was half Silver Arrow and half modern day Silver Arrow. And then Nico went off at turn 15 at Sudkurve, and then went on the drag strip, and it was slicker than an ice rink, and sent him into the barriers. And that was the place that Lewis, if I remember, also went off at the same place. And that was such a topsy-turvy one. Okay, I want your hot takes on the following drivers and where we could see them end up in 2025. Alexander Albon. Logan Sargent. I'll just run them in order. So we got Alex Albon, Logan Sargent, and Checo Perez in that order.
Right.
So let's go Alex Albon first of all.
Alex Albon. Well, he's definitely going to remain. Do you know what? I think he'll probably. Alex Albon. I would probably say remain at Williams.
Okay.
I would say. I think there's some work afoot behind the scenes. I think if Adrian Newey joins Williams, I think he'd stay. Obviously,
Yeah.
'cause why not?
True.
Why would you leave at
True.
that point? I think we need to see where Newey goes before we see where Alex goes. But I mean, I think he's established himself as a number one at Williams,
Okay.
and I would say he keeps that.
Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one because you stick him in a Red Bull alongside Max, it's like bridge
Yeah,
over troubled water all over again.
yeah,
And especially with the way that Will Buxton described it, that there is instability at Red Bull, which even means, and we'll get on to our current reigning defending champion in a little bit. But I think that Alex has really, he went away, he did DTM, he became a race winner there,
mm,
came back with Williams, and has really been sort of like their talisman, um,
mm,
so to speak, and has really helped to push the team forward. Very much like George did when he was doing his sort of like his sophomore sort of years at Williams, even when he got that surprising second. He was on possibly on pole position
back at Spa, yeah.
back at Spa a couple of years ago and got denied
Mm.
by Max right at the last minute. Um, Logan Sargent. It's been a tough one for the American, and especially as he's at his home race as well now this weekend.
Yeah, I don't think he's on the grid next season. Personally, I think this will be the last year we have Logan. I think Williams now are getting to the point, I think, where they feel they can be that team again.
Hmm.
They've made such great strides, I think, and it was great to see Claire Williams as well in the pit lane with the team this weekend at Miami. She's obviously there and representing, and for a team that she loves. Obviously, it's the very embodiment of her family. And I think it's time for Williams to rise. It's time for them to come back and be the force they once were. Maybe that's something that Adrian Newey's interested in. Maybe, and I think we'll see a teammate for Alex. I think that corresponds. I mean, there's talks of Antonelli being the next driver to jump in. Williams might be the perfect and logical option for him to really get his Formula One career underway. We'll see. I mean, it could go either way. I mean, it's a possibility. I mean that Mercedes could take Alex Albon and they throw Kimi in with someone fresh. I mean, I'm not quite sure, but or they might just send Kimi across to Mercedes, keep Alex and drop someone new in. But I truly believe it's Logan's last season. I think I can't see him staying there for next year.
Okay, and the last out of this three, Checo. Do you think he still stays at Red Bull? I think he's got a really good chance because, in comparison with last year, there were a lot of doubts. A lot of
Yeah.
doubts, especially when there was talk of possibly a switch to a different
Mm.
driver partway through the season, where Max had like come out of the gate flying, and Checo was just like, what do I need to do? I'm putting everything into it, and it's still not enough." Do you think
Mm.
he's still with it alongside Max if Max remains in 2025?
I think the game has changed now, as opposed to when I think Red Bull could turn around and actively say, well, your seat might be in jeopardy. The stock at Red Bull, don't get me wrong, they're still the fastest car on the grid, but the general take on it at the moment is that they are no longer this stable entity we know them to be, or knew them to be over the last few seasons. Of Adrian Newey now gone again, it's another big name gone. So, again, Sergio now all of a sudden becomes a very attractive player for the second seat because he's reliable, he does the job. As opposed, but like I said, you could flex your muscles and say, well, you might not have a seat here next year. You better pull your finger out, otherwise you're gone.
Yeah.
I think now for Red Bull, they almost need him to stay now. I would say in many ways, just to maintain the status quo. I would say.
Yeah. So, and this is where we're going to end it all, because obviously there's a lot going on. Apparently, that Carlos is rumored to have refused a big lucrative contract for Audi. Most people are thinking, Carlos, you must be mad, but he's holding out.
Mm.
But the big thing is, and there's so much where Max is being very, very politically correct. He's not ruffling feathers. He's just like saying,
Mm.
I'm happy where I am. But with Jos Verstappen and Christian Horner being at loggerheads. The chief executive of Red Bull having support of Christian Horner, along with the Thai family who actually own Red Bull, the 51% shareholders. They have Horner's back. Helmut Marko will probably be a Red Bull advisor until the day he dies.
Yeah,
because like literally he has scouted all these talents that have gone on. Could we see a move that really ignites the driver market? And I think that could be impending, depending on what happens with the instability of what is currently transpiring in Red Bull. Because when you have your chief technical officer, a man who's a legend within Formula One design circles, you know, you look at him and Gordon Murray being the two main protagonists when it came to car design in Formula One, and also in road car design. I mean, Gordon Murray's now doing Gordon Murray Automotive with the T33, the T50. And now Adrian is now moving away from F1 and concentrating on the RB17 bespoke supercar or hypercar that Red Bull Technologies are going to be doing. Do you think that Max is seriously considering a possible move away from Red Bull, depending on the stability of the network within that team when it comes to management?
I think you've got to look at Jos Verstappen as an extension of Max. I think in many ways. Max isn't going to say anything because obviously he doesn't want to jeopardize his own position. But if his father says something, what are they going to do to Max? They can't really do anything, can they?
Yeah.
So it's a smart way of him to sort of manage the situation. And honestly, it's like the old saying goes: "There's no smoke without fire." And if I'm honest, if you look at the takes that Jos has had on everything, you know, this is. I mean, obviously, he's a Red Bull driver now, but who knows? I mean, they're going to look at this as a change in the tide. It could be the ending of a once gigantic force in Formula One. Who knows? I mean, it's a mystery. I mean, again, I mean, if Max leaves, then maybe Alex Albon does become a Red Bull driver again. Who knows?
And,
I mean,
Sergio,
I don't know.
You've got two number ones in the same hen house.
Well, I mean, it's a job to know, isn't it? I mean, again, I mean, that would just be the thing to stick in Christian Horner's craw, wouldn't it? To sort of put Max in a Mercedes, for example. You know, I mean, that's just, you know, that's got to be the biggest. I don't want to use the term, but housery, should we say?
Yes. It'd be like goes from one hen house into another, and sort of like, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya. You know, I mean, especially with what's happened with Christian over, you know, the very, very public scenes behind the scenes at Red Bull in the before the winter test, which literally saw the signs of solidarity between Christian and wife Jerry. And then also the solidarity from Max in some respects. And then also it took the focus away from the RB20 because it all came to light around those 2 weeks circling the launch of the RB20, the pre-season test in Bahrain. And I just went, oh, you know, like literally I thought, and I was having a long conversation with my old man about it because he always goes, well, what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And we were talking and he said, what do you think about what's going on at Red Bull? And I went, there's something that is going to set this season alight and it's not going to be on track. You know, Max is still going to dominate. Let's not forget. The RB20 came flying out of the blocks. It was an evolution of the RB19. I said, but I don't think it's going to be on track where Red Bull are going to suffer. It's going to be off track. And then he said,
social media going down on the day it happens. I mean, it's going
like
to be nuclear.
Twitter, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook.
They're all going to be down.
Like everything's going to be down, and then their stock prices are going to decrease. Red Bull Racing stock prices will decrease, and Formula One's will increase. And I go, that's That's well. On that note, that's it for episode 60. George, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Thank
Really
you.
good to catch up as well. I know we always talk anyway. We keep in touch on a regular basis. But all the very best of luck for the rest of the 2024, mate. And we'll catch up soon. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for watching or for listening. And if you are watching on the YouTube channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you very soon for episode 61 of Commentator's Corner.